Hello, and welcome to A Mental Break. I'm your host, Taylor Simpson, and welcome to the second iteration of an in-person podcast.
Yay!
Welcome, everybody. You're
Hello.
listening to and hopefully watching the second ever A Mental Break in-person podcast episode. Lena was the first, and now I have Clemi.
That's me.
Clemi, say hello to everybody
Hola, everybody.
and all the listeners.
Yes. If you're listening, hello to you too.
Yes, hello, listeners and viewers. So yeah,
Double
Clemi,
whammy.
thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So how do we know each other, Clemi?
Oh my goodness, we have met.
We go back, what, three
Yeah.
years now?
Yeah.
It's got to be, right?
Yes, absolutely. Been to several shows. Same friends circle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty sure I've even come here and hung out with you a couple times and Lena. So, yeah, 3 years of friendship.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think we met through Raph, right?
Yes, probably.
Yeah. Mutual friend Raph. Shout out Raph.
Yeah, Raph,
If
you're
you're
great.
watching or listening. He's literally downstairs right now.
He's
but-
gonna be forced to listen to this.
yeah. We're going to show him. You're going to show him.
I'm gonna be like, Raph, look, I'm on a podcast.
Look at me. Yeah. I made it, Mom.
My mom, I did. Yeah. Oh, I should show this to my mom too. That would be
There you
cute.
go. There you go. So yeah, thank you for reaching out, Clemi, and for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you for wanting to share your story with everybody here. And today's episode is going to be a little bit different. Not like hugely different. Like
Just
we're
make it a little bit spicy.
Yeah, we're just gonna change the format a little bit. Like we're still getting to know Clemi and her history and her story and her battle with her mental health illnesses, just so that you guys know who Clemi is, why she's here, why she wants to come on and tell her story, all that kind of stuff, so you get to know her a bit better. And then the back half will be an open kind of discussion, I guess, if you will, about
Yeah.
other mental health related things.
Exactly.
It'll just be kind of like a nice sitting down afternoon tea, basically, of us talking.
Yeah, bringing in societal factors into our
Yeah.
personal conversations.
Exactly. Going a bit more in depth outside of just interpersonal stuff, I suppose.
As well. Yeah.
Cool. So, Clemi, to start off, I always like to ask the guest how they're feeling today. Are they feeling okay? Are they feeling comfortable with me? Obviously, this is like the first in-person filmed
Yeah.
podcast I've done. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because Lena's was just audio.
Okay.
We didn't actually do a video, so this is the first.
You get to see
video
me
one.
in the pod.
There you go. So yeah, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling okay? Are you able to open up about these things we're about to discuss? I didn't coerce you into coming. I didn't like blackmail you or any weird shit like that. Like you're here of your own free will and you consent to talking about your mental health.
Yes, absolutely, and I feel very safe and comfortable in this space.
Cool. We talked off camera for a bit first and made some
Yeah.
jokes and lightened up the mood a little bit before we got into
The heavy.
some of the heavier stuff,
Exactly.
So yeah, that's great. So yeah, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, Clemi. Who are you as a person? Where are you from? Where did you go? Where'd you come from? Cotton Eye Joe.
All right. Well, my name is Clementina. I like to go by Clemi. My pronouns are they, she. I have grown up as a first-generation immigrant in Toronto. My parents both came from Uruguay about over 30 years ago now. So I grew up here, and I've also been incredibly privileged and fortunate to have the opportunity to go back to Uruguay several times a year. Not several times a year, but once every year, more or less. So I do have that connection with my ancestral home and my extended family for at least a few weeks of the year, which is really, I'm so grateful for it. It really is a huge privilege. And what do I want to say about myself? I'm an artist. I do cool shit. I know cool people. I have been in a very long journey towards loving myself, and I'm really proud of how far I've come. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
There you go, everybody.
I made that
That's
up on the
Clemi.
spot. Not too bad. Not too shabby of a bio.
That's Clemi. There you go. Put her on the spot. Isn't it weird how when people ask you, like, tell us about yourself, you're like, who am I? I don't know what.
I just got here.
I just know my name, my age.
I was just beamed down. I don't remember anything.
What?
But
Where have you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, what do I do? Like, it's just everything leaves you.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, but any other day of the week, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I do this, this, this.
Yeah, I do lots of stuff,
Yeah.
but none of that matters. I'm just a person. I exist.
Yeah.
And I try and be kind, mainly to myself, and that extends
Hopefully
to others.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, well, that's Clem, everybody. She's on the show today.
I'm throwing up peace signs, but the people who are
Listening,
can't,
be like, what?
they're like, what? But yeah.
Audible peace signs.
Anytime there's silence, it's probably me either, throwing up peace. Yeah, like, definitely. That's what it is.
If I don't edit out all the pauses, they're all peace signs.
Exactly.
Maybe I'll just, like, throw in, like, a automation that says peace sign.
Peace sign, please.
Every time I'm
Peace
peace sign. All right, Clemi. So let's get into the nitty gritty.
Yes.
Now that people get to know a little bit about you from the top there. So, what mental health struggles or illnesses do you deal with?
Taking a drink of water for that one.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I've always had to navigate being bullied. So that obviously causes a lot of trauma and, really erodes your self-esteem, which I think leads to a lot of other illnesses. And then getting into my teens, I had some traumatic experiences that really exacerbated a lot of the problems that I think I was already kind of trying to navigate and maybe struggling with. And I would say primarily has led to prolonged periods of depression and intense anxiety that has led to things like panic attacks, and even at one point had been kind of on the fence about being diagnosed with BPD, or borderline personality disorder. That was something that was kind of thrown around. I never got that diagnosis. It was just something that they were like, you have a lot of these symptoms. I was like, yeah, because I got a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
So that's really been what I've been navigating. And I think primarily anxiety has been something that's always kind of been a near and dear friend of mine. Mm-hmm. It's never really gone away. And yeah, depression has also been something that I've had my fair share of. So yeah, I would say those are pretty much
the big three.
The big, not no biggie, but yeah.
I feel like the way I like to envision it in my head is that they're like evil triplets.
Oh yeah.
So it's like you got depression. Well, I guess everyone's triplets are different, obviously, but my triplets are like depression, anxiety, and I have OCD as well.
Ah, there you go.
And so they're like three little scary sisters.
Yes.
That control my brain, like, I don't know. It's a stupid metaphor, but
no, it works.
It's exactly
yeah, exactly. You have to find a way to kind of make peace with the fact that those are things you're going to have to navigate, and what, they're always going to be present. It's just how long they're going to visit you for and how you're going to treat them while they're visiting you. Right?
Absolutely. And it could be an extended, long visit.
Yes, exactly.
Permanent residency.
Uninvited and frankly,
unwarranted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's the nature of the beast, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you said depression, anxiety, and were you ever confirmed with the BPD or?
No. I just have a lot of symptoms of that, and I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with CPTSDs or complex PTSD, which is, so a lot of those symptoms kind of have just overlapped for me. Again, I have been diagnosed with, traumatic stress disorder. I haven't been diagnosed with BPD, and I've been told that I have anxiety, and I've been told that, like, I clearly go through depressive episodes. Sure. I've never really gone through any formal diagnosis process. I even tried to get diagnosed with ADHD once, and they were like, this is going to be 3K. And I was like, never mind, I don't have this.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah.
Well, my next question for you actually was that. It was going to be, have you ever been diagnosed with any of these at all, or anything else previous to those? Or
no, I guess I don't have a great relationship with my family doctor, if I'm being perfectly honest, and that's made it really challenging.
Most of us don't.
Funny thing, really, with the healthcare system.
You have a connection with the doctor that literally checks you over, but
they don't really seem to have mental health as one of their
No.
or even on a list of
Hence
priorities.
why we're here doing this podcast.
Exactly.
To make it more accessible to people. Be like, hey, guess what? Mental health is a real fucking thing.
I hope if you're a family doctor watching this or hearing this right now that you really consider your practice and how you treat your patients, because mental health is a real thing.
Yes.
And it affects us, and it sucks to feel like the people who are supposed to care for your entire well-being are not taking into account your holistic health. And that I will speak to later, because I feel like a lot of our systems just negate certain. They're like, oh, physical. Let's just look at the body.
Matters.
Yeah, exactly.
The brain stuff, forget about it. You're fine. You can
Spiritual stuff.
take an
That's
Advil.
not even a thing. Yeah.
Drink some water. Do some yoga. It's like,
you're
that only
fine.
goes so far.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure we can get into that more deeply for sure. But okay, so you've never formally been diagnosed with anything, but I'm not deterring from what you have, obviously.
Yeah.
I've had to like backpedal a few times on this podcast because I had some person, not gonna name names obviously, but we're like, oh, but it's still valid. I'm like, yeah, I didn't mean it that way. I mean, like,
it's more about how difficult it is to receive a diagnosis and the fact that I think we need to start really questioning within ourselves why do we need a diagnosis to be good? I mean,
to be validated.
Exactly. And also because a diagnosis can sometimes become an identity, and that's something that for those of us who struggle with mental illness and have, a harder time finding mental well-being, it can be very challenging and almost a detriment to our healing process to identify with, BPD, for example, or CPTSD. Like, I will always be suffering from PTSD. That's my identity now. That gives you less room to, like you said, invite these visitors in and see them out the door when they go and not have that be you, right? You've separated these people or feelings that visit you from who you are as a person, right?
Sure.
Whereas if you have, I feel sometimes that I'm almost fortunate in a way that I haven't received a diagnosis because I haven't been able to create that as an identity for myself.
Right.
And I have used identity as a way to really identify with being mentally unwell. I used to just always be like, oh yeah, I'm fucked up,
Oh, almost
with
like
a lot
using
of
it as
pride.
an excuse?
Exactly.
Or like a buyout?
Yes.
It's like, oh, I do this because I have this.
Yes.
And
also just like, I can't, this is who I am.
And you're just accepting it and not willing to move forward.
Yes.
It's funny that you say that, and like I appreciate that opinion. That's great. I've just the first time hearing it from that perspective. I had a guest, Nicole, on who also said something similar to what you just said. The way I view because I've been diagnosed with all three of them when I was really young. I was 13 years old when I got diagnosed with all three of them, right?
Oh, wow.
So for me at 13 years old, I don't know, just the way I comprehended it was it clairvoyancy, I guess. It's just kind of like it made it more clear to me what I had because I was questioning what was happening to me, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't let it so much be my identity, even though I know it's a big part of me. Like it is the majority of me are these things, unfortunately, but that takes up a lot of space in there. But I didn't let it well, it was controlling at first, obviously, but I took the steps to get better. It gave me the clarity that I needed.
Yeah.
To see what it was I was dealing with.
Exactly.
Like, okay, this is what I have. I can see it. It's tangible in front of me now. It's not like a guessing game. Like, why do I feel this way?
Right. No, and I fully hear you. I think that goes with when I think of how I've navigated the healing process, a lot of it has come through awareness, right? And like you said, if there's things that you know that you have to be aware of, it makes it easier.
Yeah,
whereas I can feel like with me, there were a lot of things that were never diagnosed or brought to light.
Yeah.
And so even though I would hear, CPTSD or BPD, I would have to be the one to go on YouTube and be like, what are the symptoms of da-da-da? And then I would watch a YouTube video and be amazed by how many of these things would align with what I was experiencing. And then I could become more aware of catching myself in those moments and having that moment where I'm like, okay, do I really want to engage in this behavior? Or is this how I'm feeling? Being able to name what you're going through, I think, has a lot of power.
Yeah.
Again, I feel that for me, I wouldn't say that it really hindered me. It definitely hasn't been the easiest for things like ADHD, for example, where I'm like, having meds would definitely improve my quality of life a lot of the time.
Sure.
However, with, depression or things like that, it's something that has been challenging not having a diagnosis, and at the same time has also not allowed me to identify with that.
Right.
Because I'm telling you, my surefire way of trying to not deal with myself or my problems was, oh, well, I'm just fucked up.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are guilty of doing that, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And I think both points are completely valid.
Yeah.
I
duality.
Think it just depends on the person and how you approach the situation of the diagnosis.
Also, both of those things can be true for one person at any time, right?
Right.
Some people need a diagnosis.
Some people need it for the clarity, like I did, and then some people don't want it because then they'll be consumed by it.
Exactly.
So it just depends on how you approach it. So any listeners out there or viewers, just know that like getting a diagnosis is not crucial.
No.
It's not the answer. If you're struggling with something that you don't know what it is, like I was at a young age, and you need that clarity,
yes,
then go get it.
Yes.
Because that might help you.
Exactly.
But just don't become all consumed by it, like Clemi was saying to her point, or their point. Sorry, whatever.
No, you can swap between the two.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
Yes.
What Clemi was saying, just try not to get consumed by that diagnosis, like that.
Yeah.
Just because you have that mental health illness does not make you all encompassed that.
Yes.
Like, there's more to you than
you
just that.
are feeling depressed. You are not depressed.
Exactly.
You are not depression personified.
You are not, yeah. It's not a puppet, and you're like,
Yeah.
you are in the puppet. Like,
yeah.
like,
yeah.
It's just a little sock puppet on your hand that happens to be the depression.
Exactly. And sometimes it's a bit, more intimidating or more all-consuming than we would like.
Yep.
And like you said, one thing that I really liked was this idea of clarity and providing a guide, right? If you know what you're looking for, it makes it easier to take the steps that you need in order to help yourself.
Absolutely. All right, we covered that.
Hey.
There we go. We got through that one. Good. So, Clemi, what has your experience or your perspective been like dealing with your mental health? And the way I kind of imagine this question, or the way I like to tell my guests to approach it, just to help the listeners as well, is just imagine like a timeline. Give me like a timeline from like when you started noticing these things in your life. Was there a certain traumatic event? Because, we talked about trauma being a big part of
Yeah.
it. Was there a certain traumatic event at the beginning that you noticed these things starting to pop up in your life? How did you deal with them? Did you go to therapy? Yada, yada, that kind of stuff, to where you are now. Like a brief synopsis of that, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that it started when I was a preteen going into being a teen, and I thought I was grown, and I had a lot of, struggles within myself due to lack of community, due to lack of what felt like support, or bullying that kind of eroded my self-confidence, that made me prone to putting myself in situations where I was in harm's way actively because I didn't feel that I deserved to be safe, and I didn't think that my life had value, and so I would continuously put myself in really unsafe situations. And
Okay.
I've been very lucky for the most part in terms of, some of the things that I've done, I'm surprised I've lived through. And some of the things I didn't end up so lucky in some situations. And I have had certain situations that left me very scarred and immediately kind of pulled me into a spiral of just shutting down. I realized that immediately my defense mechanism for feeling terrified and pain and used and hurt and violated was to shut off all feeling. And I think that's where depression became my best friend and got me through a lot of situations. It was my comfort blanket. I could just sleep. I could
The depression was that for you.
The depression was that. It was something that would just take away all the... I actually, in my art and in the way I speak about it, I call it the void. I would just enter the void and I would not feel anything. And it was great. until I couldn't get out,
Mm.
and until nothing gave me any kind of satisfaction, and then I would seek even more reckless endeavors and situations to put myself in, which would then again cause more trauma.
Of course.
And it also really kind of spiraled into anxiety, which had me lying a lot. I was a compulsive liar. I just couldn't.
Wow.
I would not be honest with myself, mainly to protect
I
myself.
was gonna say, yeah.
And that clearly extended to other people. I would lie to my parents all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And being caught in some of those lies landed me in therapy. And I think my parents didn't really know what they were doing. Again, being the child of immigrant parents, a lot of the times our parents come here and they don't actually have a lot of tools to figure out
Sure.
how to navigate this system.
Yep.
It's not something that they grew up being.
Or it's not part of their culture.
Exactly. So I had some therapy situations that were really uncomfortable and made me realize that I wasn't safe in therapy. You know, they
Wow.
would tell you, they tell you as a young adult that if you are doing anything that can be perceived as suicidal or as a harm to yourself or others, that they will disclose that information. And I can't think of something more harmful to tell someone, you
Yeah.
know, like that.
It's a very personal battle you're going through, and to have that expressed outwardly without your consent can be pretty harmful, I'd say.
Oh, 100%. And
I
that,
understand that, I understand that they, are in charge of your well-being at that point, and if it gets to that point where they think that you might do something, I can see them talking to your parents maybe and be like, hey, she, he, they are part of, or they're getting on the brink of this, right?
yeah.
That would be the only case that I would maybe be okay with that being a thing. But
Well, a lot of the time in our system, it's not just that they will tell our parents; they'll tell the cops, right? So
yeah, they
there's
go right to the most
exactly,
extreme.
exactly. So I think for me, it was a non. Yeah, it wasn't even an option. It was just I'm gonna lie to the therapist. I'm not gonna tell them how much I'm suffering
Right.
or how any of this is making me feel. And I think that I was able to do that for several years to the point where I kind of convinced myself that I had sorted through my problems. I was like, "Oh, I'm fine now. I have a boyfriend that isn't someone that's constantly making me feel traumatized and violated, and I
Right.
have decided that I am free of all problems now, even though that was not even remotely the case." And then, unfortunately, even another traumatizing event that was outside of me, however, still kind of triggered a lot of memories for me and made me realize just the fact that I couldn't keep running away from myself and that these situations just seemed to keep following me.
Sure.
And that brought everything back. I had panic attacks. I had months of depression. I was so anxious I couldn't eat. I was
Right.
having difficulty sleeping. And that probably happened for a couple years. And actually, since that point, it led me down yet another spiral. I got into an abusive relationship. It was a very tough time because I had lost. I don't know if it had been a very long time since I had any love for myself, but I was really past the point of even trying to care about who I was or what I was worth anymore. So
Right.
yeah,
Okay. So that's the synopsis of
brief
where
life.
that stems from.
Yes.
So what I gathered, trying to absorb all of that, was a lot of, I want to say a lot of, not on your part, but misplaced guidance from your parents. Maybe a bit of misplaced guidance from you, leaning on your depression to get you through things that you thought was going to get
absolutely.
you through.
Yeah.
Anxiety being weaved in and out, obviously,
Yeah.
because of all the stuff that was going on at that age. And the last thing was you said PTSD from the top of the episode.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that stems from the abusive relationships and stuff.
Yeah, there
Is
were
that-
several situations that I found myself in that at the time you normalize for yourself and then that's why it's PTSD, really.
Sure.
You're not even aware of how traumatizing something really is for you it just keeps kind of, it never leaves you until you address it.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I guess in the moment, you're not really seeing it for what it is, clearly, because either you put yourself in the situation or you didn't want to be there, but you're there now.
You got to survive.
And
That's
you're
it.
just in survival mode, right?
Exactly.
And you just kind of push through.
Yes.
This is my understanding of it anyways, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but then you get to a certain point in your life where certain little things start triggering
Yeah.
you from that time.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait, why do I feel this way? Like, what?
Yeah.
And then starts to dawn on you that you're like, oh, I'm not over that thing that happened to me.
No, and actually, in my case, there was a lot of memory loss associated with all of this. So
Yeah.
I would just I would be like, was that why am I thinking, is that a movie? Was that my life? Did that happen to me?
Yeah, it's almost like a reference.
Yeah.
It's like, that wasn't my life. That was this other person's life.
Yeah, and
You
I
know,
would just
like-
kind of, and it's not something, I think a lot of the time PTSD is kind of portrayed as something where, you hear a bang and then it triggers like a flashback. I would have, there would be not even really a trigger, and I would have a memory and just be left to navigate the feelings of that memory, right? So
Right.
it was it's not really, and it differs person to person, but that was my experience.
Okay. Wow, that was a lot, but thank you for sharing. I feel honored to have received this information, and listeners and viewers, hopefully you can take that in and divulge it as you will.
Yes.
But thank you, Clemi, for sharing. That's I'm very sorry you had to go through all that, but I'm glad that you're here.
I'm
glad
glad
you're working
too.
through it still.
Yeah.
Or you've worked through some stuff at least, so that's good. Check the camera.
Oh yeah.
Make sure that we have time going. A few minutes left.
Okay.
So, our next segment.
Yes.
We're powering through this, and then we'll get to the back half.
A.
So, the next segment is called the Real Reels.
Okay.
So, this is the kind of section of the podcast where we talked about it off camera, of kind of breaking down these barriers, these kind of stigmatized conversations, if you will, like the
Yeah.
taboo in
Yeah.
society of like, don't talk about your mental health, like, well, like, you know what I mean, like the stuff you wouldn't normally talk about openly with an acquaintance,
Yep.
but try to make it more normalized,
Yes.
in an everyday conversation. Like if someone asks you, hey, how are you doing? You know what? I feel like shit,
Yeah.
and here's why.
I thought about killing myself 4 times today. I'm really glad I didn't. That's where I'm at.
Right?
We need to be talking about these things and not feel so much shame about it. Actually, I have a really good story. A very close friend of mine who I've known practically my whole life. I met up with them for breakfast, and then as we were walking after our breakfast date, they turned to me and they say, hey, I saw that you posted on your story something about life being really exhausting. I just wanted to ask you, are you feeling suicidal at all? And I
Wow.
was like, yo, Amanda,
So
thank
receptive.
you. Thank you.
Wow.
Yes, thank you for asking. I actually am not feeling suicidal right now. I was literally just exhausted by the fact that life doesn't stop, and it would be
Yeah,
nice to
yeah.
like be able to take a nap or something. However, that is such a powerful conversation to be able to have so authentically, so openly, so normally
Yeah.
with a friend. We were
Absolutely.
having a coffee and they were like, yo, so are you feeling
So what's
suicidal?
going
Are you
on?
good?
Yeah.
Because that's how we need to talk about it. There's not a
Yep.
single person on this planet who hasn't thought about taking their own life. I think it's quite normal that we contemplate death.
It's a part of life.
It's a part of life. Like,
Yeah, I think we all question our mortality at some point, right?
exactly.
At one stage or another,
Yeah.
right?
That was pretty much the story. Just the fact that all of us struggle with being suicidal and struggle with life. And it should be, like you said, a common and non-stigmatized, non-judgmental part of our conversation and relationships to ourselves and others.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. A lot of the time, I don't even think we recognize how much we're struggling. I think there's been a lot of times where I look back and I'll be like, wow, I was really suicidal during this time. And I didn't even really kind of clue into that because no one asked me.
Right.
No one asked me how I was feeling.
Mhm.
And I also didn't feel that talking to people about how I was really feeling was something that was, I felt that validating the intensity of those like really heavy negative feelings was somehow going to make it worse
Sure.
or real.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually the opposite. The more you speak about it, the less ashamed you are of what you've gone through, the more you open that space for yourself to feel what you're feeling and move through it.
Absolutely.
Instead of allowing it to be something that you carry with you all the time.
Yeah. I think to touch upon what you said earlier, I do want to say for like the average listener out there, I mean, I'm assuming that if you're listening to this podcast, you must have some sort of relation with mental health, whether it be in yourself or with others. So maybe it's not directed to you directly, listeners or viewers. But if there's anyone out there that doesn't have any relation to mental health, I understand that it might be tough for them to see the signs of, like, let's say, Clemi, you and I had a shitty fucking day, you know, and like I'm feeling suicidal, you're feeling suicidal. Maybe a person that isn't around that enough isn't going to see that, so they're not going to know to ask, right?
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's just like you don't even have to ask somebody else. Maybe look at yourself in the mirror and be like, how am I feeling today?
Yeah, sure.
What am I feeling? Where's my heart at right now? You know, I don't think it has to be something where it's, you know, you need a PhD in mental health.
No, of course.
You know, I think a lot of the time we put this emphasis on ourselves to be saviors to others when really the first person we need to be checking on is the person that we're with all the time, which is ourselves.
Yeah, of
and
course.
I think that that's one thing that, you know, it becomes easier to have these conversations with other people if you accept that it's a normal part of you, you know, realizing
totally.
when you're having those thoughts. And a lot of the time we think, oh, they're just thoughts, right? Yeah. Our thoughts influence a lot of how we're feeling and how we view the world. So, you know, even for people who might not even realize that this is something that they're currently struggling through because they're just thoughts that they have, you know,
right?
How many times do you know, make derogatory comments about yourself? How many times do you walk by the mirror and have something unkind to say? Self-deprecating humor. Yeah. How many times do you know, want to stay in bed just so you don't have to get on with the day because there's either nothing to look forward to for you or the thought of actually going through life is painful. And a lot of people don't, I think, have, you know, we think that this is something that just happens to people who, you know, either have this intimate relationship with mental health or, you know about what mental health means, but it happens to all of us. All of us have different situations in which we feel not great with ourselves. And oftentimes it's that we don't, like you said, we don't have the tools to be able to check in with ourselves or others about.
Well, my original point to that was that, like, if you know somebody that might be going through something like that and you don't feel like you're equipped, all you have to do is just listen. My original point was just like,
okay. I was taking on a whole other
like, as soon as you started your point, I was like, I'm just gonna let her finish that point because it was valid. But my original point was just like to any listeners out there that aren't as intimately related with mental health like you and I are, because you know we're both mental health advocates. Clearly, I run this podcast. You do all this amazing initiative stuff on your Instagram and every other channel that you use. So you know we're in it.
Yeah.
But for people that aren't in it and that want to be able to help, I would just say, like, just be able to listen.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, thank you.
That was
you're
the
not.
original point
yes,
to what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yes. You don't have to be like a first aid kit for someone who's struggling.
Yes.
It's about having the conversation, and if you are feeling like someone that you care about is having a really hard time and you're unsure of what to do, there are a lot of resources out there for you to feel supported in however you choose to support that person. Not everybody who is suicidal needs someone to, you know, take it to somebody else or feel, you know, you can ask, right? If someone's letting you know of something that's going on with them, for example, even in this conversation, there's been a lot of check-ins on how I'm feeling. How does this make me feel? How do I want to, you know, what is the care that I need to receive after this? All of those conversations you can have with your friend or loved one or with yourself without actually having to, like, there's no right or wrong way to go about this, as much as, yeah, there's some things that may come more easily to people who have either done a training or had more conversations or are more familiar with the world of mental health and different approaches that you can take to, speaking kindly to yourself and
Yeah.
supporting yourself. But sometimes support is just being there for someone.
Exactly. At the bare minimum.
Yes, exactly.
If you don't want to do the research, and I just suggest you should, but if you do the research and you don't understand it still, all Clemi and I could say is just be there the best you can with the person. And the point of this segment of the podcast, the Real Reels, is just talking openly about these things and making them more accessible, more palatable, more digestive. Other food words that I'm throwing into this for some reason. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, make mental health conversations delicious and appetizing.
Exactly. That's the message.
Yes.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
The Real Reels, helping mental health conversations delicious. I don't know.
There's a
There's a
nutritionist
slogan
value
somewhere
there.
there.
Exactly.
This is now a brand. I'm going to sell a mental break cereal.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Chocolatey Cocoa Puffs. With little
There's, like,
reminders
free
on the
dopamine.
puff that says, like, take a deep breath before you eat it.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourself.
There you go. I'll get working on that now.
Excellent. Wonderful.
But yeah, Clemi, let's go deep. If you want to. Obviously, like, you can go as deep as you want. This is your episode. I'm not going to force you to go any deeper that you don't want to go.
Excellent.
But I only have really one question in the Real Reels because it kind of encompasses the point of the subject. But what are the hardest moments that you've had to deal with mental health that strikes you?
Wanting to kill myself. Straight up. That's the
So,
toughest thing.
Suicidal thoughts?
Yeah. That's the toughest thing.
Doing the action?
That's the toughest thing to make peace with.
Absolutely. I've tried 4 times, so, like, I know.
Yeah.
I have to live with that.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm still living with it, but, like, getting there each day, obviously, but...
Yeah. It's not, like you said, it's something that you have to accept as part of life, you know? I think a lot of us don't realize how insidious we can be with trying to take our lives. You know, we see we're like, okay, you know, this is the way that people have taken their lives, and that's the only way that you can do that. But there are many ways that people are insidious in how they try and take their lives. For me, it was continuously making incredibly reckless choices. I had complete disregard for the value of my life. And I think that that's really a terrifying place to be in when you realize that you have this capacity within yourself to sabotage any future, sabotage everything that you have as a possibility, right?
But I feel like you're a bit blinded, though.
Absolutely.
Because of depression. Like, I think... So I don't want to cut you off there, Clemi, but just
No,
a
go
quick
ahead.
thought before you jump into the rest was just, like, for people listening that may not understand suicide fully or, like, suicidal thoughts or why someone would go to the lengths of the act, it's usually, I'm not going to say always because I never want to generalize, but it's usually because the person is lost. And, like, I'm talking from experience, obviously, because I've been through this before multiple times. You're lost and you're not thinking about anything else.
Yeah.
Like, you have to imagine, like, how deep and how dark this hole has to be for someone to reach that answer, like, or to come up with, this is the only way out of this.
Yeah.
You know, and, like, they're not clear-headed when they're making this decision usually. There's substances involved, there's depression involved, anxiety, like, all the mental health illness wrapped in it. If you're drunk, if you're high, like, that doesn't help either. Like,
Yeah.
it's just... And, like, I hate this whole stigma of, like, well, you're just selfish for taking your own life. It really bothers me, that conversation, you know what I mean? And, like, I've had people say that to me the second time I tried.
I'm so sorry.
So this is why I enjoy talking about this. This is why I like talking about this, because it's like the more I talk about it and get it open, the more normalized it becomes, and the less I have to worry about people acting that way about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that when people say that, they really struggle to come to terms with the elements of themselves that are sabotaging. You know, everybody wants to think that they have full control and that, you know, they make all the decisions. And the reality is that there are many parts of yourself that if you don't stare right in the face, you will not know how insidious and sabotaging they are to you.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's not a choice. It's a part of myself that has decided that I have no value, that I have allowed to, that I have fed actually with self-depreciating comments, with surrounding myself with people who are unkind, with substance abuse, with all these things that make that element of myself bigger and bolder and badder until it's all consuming. And then
Yeah.
the only thing I can see is that sabotaging force within me that says you have no value, you are worthless, you do not deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And tell me that you would have any fight against something like that. And it's hard because it's actually not a fight at all. The times that I have
I wish it was a fight.
the only times that I have been able to make peace with that has been offering that part of myself so much love. Like
Yeah.
just being like,
You have
wow,
to.
I see you. I see how much you don't want to be here right now. And I don't have a solution. I don't have a solution. You're just going to have to
Push through.
you're just going to have to hang in here with me
Yeah.
for 5 more minutes,
Yep.
for 10 more minutes, for until we can get to bed. Let's just go to sleep. That's a kind of temporary death.
That's
Let's
step
pick that,
one.
you know?
Like, let's get there
anything to kind
first.
of mitigate that harm, because I think that, like you said, it's not a choice. And that's why when talking about suicide, a lot of it is actually mitigating harm. It's what are the things that you can do that are mitigating that potential choice that you feel that you have to make,
Yeah.
right? Because you're consumed by that force that says that you are absolutely worthless and that you have no future, right?
Yeah.
And it's about just that tiny other voice in your head that's like, hey, 5 more minutes. Hey, can we
Yeah.
just make it to bed? Hey,
The
can we
only
like call a friend?
Last
Or-
brain cell you have of quote unquote goodness, I guess, like the voice of reason
Thank you.
that you
yeah.
have left in that moment,
Yeah.
trying to pull you out of it. But it's like,
Yeah.
here's the depression, and
Yeah.
here's the little voice of reason. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like you said, it's not even a fight at that point, right?
No, and it's not. It has nothing to do with selfishness, because that saboteur that we all have within us, and it's not something that is unique to people who struggle with mental health. I argue a lot of people who are perceived as perfectly functioning in this world have saboteurs that are arguably horrendous. So it's
Yeah.
not something that's just reserved for people who have, struggle with the more unkind elements within themselves. I think every one of us has a saboteur, and some of them are very effective and very insidious and function very well in society, because a lot of elements of society
Are built like
encourage
that.
that. Exactly.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think it's actually one of the most selfless things you can do to stare that part of yourself in the face. And most of the time, unfortunately, that can only happen when you are at death's door. And that is,
It's definitely a wake up call.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that pulled me out of the first time was, since we're getting into it, honestly, was my loved ones. You know, like, thank God I had that thought pop in my head.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to get into too much detail for, monetization reasons, but fuck you, society. Fuck you. Yeah, I was hanging. And, I kicked the chair away, and I was dying. And then these thoughts started flying into my mind, and it was overshadowing the depression. And it was like moments with my brother, or moments with my aunt, or my best friends, or I was dating somebody at the time, like moments with them. Like, it was all these moments of people that I need to be here for. And like, I should have been thinking about myself. Like, I want to be here, but like, I'll take it at that point. Like,
Yeah.
whatever can get me
Absolutely.
out of that moment to make
Absolutely.
me push forward and want to live more.
Absolutely.
And like, it eventually did get to a point later in my life where I was in a similar situation again, where I want to take my life, and I was like, no, I want to be here, right? So I did
Yeah.
get there, but it just takes time. But anyways, the point being was like, yeah, like the thoughts of my loved ones, like it allowed me to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
And like I came pretty close, but it got me out of it.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes it's not the case for everybody.
Yeah.
They're like so far gone that that's not even a thought anymore, right?
Yeah.
But like we're not doing it for attention, or we're not doing it to I don't know, make you feel bad for us, or whatever, like whatever way society wants to twist it.
Also,
like,
I don't even see what's wrong with that. What is so wrong with someone seeking validation? If that's where we're at, whether it's from yourself, like you said, you work towards seeking that validation from yourself.
Sure.
Sometimes that's not where we're at. And frankly, the whole point of being human and having relationships with others is finding ourselves in others. And sometimes seeing the parts of others that we wish to unlock within ourselves is that anchor, like you said.
Yeah.
And sometimes the wake-up call is for us. And it's also a wake-up call for those around us, or for us to really see, are the people around us providing us with the attention or support that we need right now, right? I think it's, in this society, we put so much onus on, the individual, right?
Sure.
And of course, your mental health journey is your journey, and you, as an individual, are
You have to live
responsible
through it.
for your own life. You are
Yeah.
responsible for your own life. And we are a community, and that's what we should strive to be. And
Yeah.
that's what this society has eroded and really seeks to kind of push this very egotistical individualism.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's community that has saved us over and over
Absolutely.
and over and over again.
Yeah. That
So
sense of
there should be
togetherness.
there should be no shame in asking for that and knowing that that's something that we as humans need.
Or if that's what comes out of it.
Yeah.
Like if you go through the suicide attempt and it doesn't go through and you survive, and then people, like, either they find out or you tell them or whatever, like, I guess it's in a weird way, it kind of weeds out the people that you need in your life. Like,
Yeah.
who are going to step forward and be like, dude, don't do that. Or man, why'd you do that? Like, that kind of stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
then it'll show you what you need. Or,
Yes.
like, it'll show you the people that are willing to give you what you need in the situation,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. And you don't have to get to that point to figure that out.
yeah, please don't.
Yes.
I mean, like, I'm not saying that
Disclaimer.
that's
No one's saying that. We're
Yeah,
just
no.
saying that it's not something that should be taken as it shouldn't be a negative thing to be like, "Oh, this is a cry for help." Yes, it's a cry for help.
Yeah,
we all are crying for help, and we can cry for help in a much
In a different
healthier,
way.
safer way.
Sure.
For example, by calling your friend when you're having a panic attack,
Yeah.
or when you're spiraling, or if you have addiction and you feel that you're going to use a substance, to reach out to someone who you know can be that grounding presence
Yeah.
that you need. Those are all calls for help as well, right? So
and doing this podcast.
exactly.
Doing this podcast and talking about this kind of shit.
Exactly.
And then people listen and be like, oh, wow, they're going through this shit. Like, I'm
I'm
not
going
trying to
through
toot my
this
own horn
shit.
here, but I'm just saying, like, there are other people that do this outside of me. I'm just trying to create my own little slice of the pie, basically. But
Exactly.
yeah,
Thank you for sharing that.
absolutely. It's a no-brainer for me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it more accessible to other people.
Yeah.
You know, the more I talk about it, the more you talk about it. Other guests I have on the pod, hopefully that spreads, and like they talk about it with their friends, and it just creates this huge domino effect, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, find that safety within yourself so that you are surrounded by those who can support you in your journey. I think that healing is absolutely initiated by the individual, and it is absolutely a community effort. It takes a village to raise anybody. It takes a village
Yeah.
to heal, and it takes a village to do some really fucked up shit to all of us and to ourselves. So that's
there you go.
Yeah.
Some words of wisdom from Clemi. How we doing on the camera situation? 10 minutes, okay.
Beauty.
Okay. So we went on a bit of a tangent there, or the
Yeah.
wheel reels, but it was all very important. So
Yes.
beautiful. But the main thing was suicide was the hardest moment for you, basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So moving out of that,
Yes.
let's go to the rainbow segment.
Okay.
So this is kind of like hopefully coming out of that darkness. I mean, I know that people still face stuff throughout their life. Like, we're still pretty young. Obviously, we have a lot of life to live,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yes.
Um,
It never stops.
no, of course. It's always with you. But presumably, you're sitting on this bed for a reason, talking to me on the podcast. So,
Yes.
we've done some building
Yes.
since those moments in our life, right?
Absolutely.
So this kind of segment is just talking about getting to this point, basically. And,
Hmm.
what are the things that we figured out in ourselves and have allowed us to get better? And specifically you, Clemi. So, my first question is, are there any positive things or things you discovered in yourself through the process that have helped you overcome some mental health illnesses, or at least just cope with them a bit better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a huge element of my healing has been acknowledging that I have agency. Empowering myself is a huge part of the process. I think that that's where the identity piece comes in. If you create your identity around trauma or around a moment that has defined you, right? Even depression is a moment. It passes, as challenging as that moment is and as shitty as
Yeah.
it is. If we create that as our identity, we very much struggle to leave that moment or to allow it to pass through. And I was very much that person. I saw myself as fucked up, and I was like, this is who I am. And I can't exactly pinpoint what allowed me to move past that mentality. At some point,
That's okay.
I think I just was really tired of hating myself, frankly.
It could be as simple as that.
Yeah,
And then the snowball effect happens from there, right?
exactly.
Yeah, the first step is I mean, you hope it's coming from a positive place, but even if it's just, you know what, I'm sick of feeling this way, or I'm sick of being like this.
Yeah, the first step is admitting that you hate yourself. That's the first step. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, I really
Don't like where I am.
I don't like where I am. I don't like how I view myself. And I don't want to accept that. I mean, I accept that, and I also don't want to live in that space forever.
Yeah.
I accept that this is where I am right now. And then I also feel like one of the life-saving elements of my healing has been practicing non-judgment. We are so conditioned to judging everyone and everything, including most of all ourselves.
Yep.
And I think that's another reason why this podcast is so important, because it's not just about destigmatizing, it's about releasing judgment and, being able to say, like, I hate myself without any judgment, or know that, wow, I did something really cruel to myself today. And I'm simply going to accept that that's where the saboteur came out, and that I did that, and I am going to move on from that. And hopefully next time I will be aware enough of the fact that I have a tendency to do that,
Yeah.
that I stop myself from doing it before it happens. And if I don't catch myself, no judgment. And if I catch myself, no judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it is what it is.
Exactly.
And
And
then
I think
moving
that's
forward, how can I maybe not do that as much?
Exactly.
Right.
Which again, if you're bullying yourself into healing from mental health issues, that's simply, you're just gonna dig another hole for yourself.
The only person you're hurting is yourself by doing that.
Exactly. And we've all been I really think it's important. We've all been so conditioned to accept bullying as, we've never outgrown middle school. Every aspect of society is just bullying, but in different different stages. Biggest bullies of our imperialism, white supremacy, capitalism,
Yep.
all these terrible forces. They're just bullying people into feeling like they don't have agency, or that they don't have the capacity to empower themselves. So, yeah, you will not heal by, it's not something you can bully yourself with. It's actually got to come from so much acceptance and compassion. Love will follow. Start with acceptance, starts with non-judgment, start with compassion. Damn, I did something to hurt myself today. That was very unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'm going to offer myself a lot of understanding,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do my best to catch myself from doing that again. Or, wow, I just said I thought something really judgmental about this person. I just did that. Wow, I'm learning to catch myself saying these judgmental things. Go me.
Yeah.
Like, how difficult is it to really, like, celebrate ourselves when we're catching ourselves doing something that, like, isn't great?
Yeah. And, noticing it.
We have
It's
this
like
tendency
learning
to
and then unlearning.
Exactly. And we have a tendency to punish ourselves for doing things that are conditioned, right?
Sure.
So I would have this tendency where I would catch myself doing something that I wasn't really proud of, and I would be like, damn, that's so bad. Like, why would you do that? That's so disgusting.
Talking down to yourself?
Yeah. And then I'd be like, and then I'd shift in my mentality, and it was, wow, Clemi, I'm so proud of you. You realized that you were doing something that isn't healthy for you.
Right. And you stopped doing it.
And then it was so much easier to stop.
It's almost like embarrassing. You're like, wait, why? I didn't do that. And then you like stop doing it.
Yeah, because you have to acknowledge that you did it, and you don't have to shame yourself about it. All of us are doing things, and that's the whole point of life, is to grow.
Absolutely.
None of us are perfect, and none of us are going to get any better by bullying ourselves.
So I think you just answered my question then. I think you like these are all practices that I think you've been doing.
Yes,
clearly,
absolutely.
Right? To help you get through stuff.
Absolutely.
So you had the answer the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, we just spent like 10 minutes talking about all these
I laid out
things.
all the steps.
You're like, I do this. I'm like, you're doing all these practices already. Like this is what you learned. This is what you did to get better.
Yes, it's practice.
And catch these things. Yeah.
Practice.
Yeah, it's self-compassion too, I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of, what's the other one? Mindfulness. That's a big one these days. Is mindfulness. I haven't really looked into it too much, so I'm not going to talk on my ass. But like,
I feel that mindfulness pretty much just encompasses the awareness element. That when you start actually paying attention to how you treat yourself, that's mindfulness.
Sure.
When you recognize, oh wow, the moment that I go to brush my teeth and I see myself in the mirror, the first thing that I do is say something unkind about myself. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're not being mindful, that's just something that happens. You don't even pay attention to it. It's just in your, it's almost flying under your radar.
Right.
But you want to increase your level of consciousness.
Sure.
You want to pull those subconscious thoughts and feelings and exactly. Be mindful.
Be mindful of your surroundings, of your feelings, of, and like take it all in and use it to help you get through things that you had trouble getting through before.
Yeah, exactly. The same thing that you were saying at the start of this, which is like, if you're mindful, you recognize when one of those evil sisters is visiting. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, that's depression. All right.
What's
up?
Good? How's it going?
Yeah.
What's up, old friend?
Exactly.
Hello, darkness, my old.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man. Well, I think we answered my next question, but if you have any other points, maybe we can bring them up. Have you found any constructive ways or coping mechanisms or any sort of thing like that to help you get through your individual mental health illnesses? So like, I don't know, tips or tricks that you figured out about your depression or your PTSD or some of the anxiety stuff you suffered from?
Yeah. I always used to hate when people would say this, and then I started doing it, going outside and exercising.
Hey, it's important.
I was like, that's not going to help me. And then I started doing it, and it really, walking barefoot in the grass. If you find a field and you take your shoes off and you get that grass juice on your feet, that's some free serotonin right there.
Hey, there you go. And it's the little things.
It's the little
things. Sorry, I don't want to jump on your answer.
No, that's it. It's all the things that you don't want to accept as being helpful because it seems, like almost too easy to be true. Mm-hmm. It's not that it's easy. It is still a practice to be able to bring yourself to go outside, especially if you have anxiety, especially if you're depressed. Yep. However, the more that you're able to kind of encourage yourself to do these things for yourself, whether it's, a little exercise, you just literally do jumping jacks, or you put on your favorite song and you dance in your underwear, start the morning dancing while you brush your teeth. All these things have really improved my quality of life. I would say that journaling has allowed me to get through some of the toughest parts of that self-awareness journey when you're starting to realize some of the things that you do that are not so kind. Sometimes journaling is the best way to just put all of that energy into a space and leave it. And the other thing that I really got back into when I started my healing journey was my art practice. And that was everything from, drawing to singing and moving my body more. All these elements, creative elements of myself that I feel that I had really suppressed when I was mentally unwell.
Perfect. That's very well said, Clemi.
Thank you.
Well, let's do a rapid fire.
Yeah.
Because our camera's about to die.
Yes.
I mean, you audio listeners will be able to hear all of this, hopefully. But Clemi wanted to talk about a couple of things on this pod, so let's try to fire through these. I wish we could spend more time on it, but
I can make it brief.
the camera is camera. Like I can't control it. Can't control. So this is for you viewers.
Yes.
Okay. What connects us?
What connects us is that all of us have life and our life. All of us are connected through life. And as we've kind of revealed or hinted at throughout the episode, you know, Taylor and I haven't talked about this stuff before. And so many of our situations have either overlapped or have shared similar connecting threads, you know, trauma being one, relationships to others and self being one. And I think that the more that we emphasize the fact that we are connected, the more we allow ourselves to be able to engage with each other.
That's great. I agree. I was trying to think of any other thoughts I had for I mean, in terms of like mental health, you pretty much covered it. I mean, like you find things in all these people that you might not have seen before.
Yeah.
Right? Just be open to listening.
Exactly.
And talking about it openly, and then you'll be surprised at what you discover in people. What allows us to work towards mental wellness?
I think decolonizing our approach to shit is pretty rad in that way, you know? Let's not separate mind from body from spirit. All of these things are connected. It's no wonder creative practice is something that so many people who struggle with mental health have said saves their lives. It's a spiritual practice. Absolutely. Using our bodies in healthy ways is connected to our mental well-being, right? So I think that that's another thing that just don't put everything into a box and separate it out. You are a holistic being that is connected to a lot of other beings and life itself and nature and the planet, and embrace all of these wisdoms and tools.
Beautiful things around us.
Exactly, in order to heal.
Well said. Well said. What else towards mental illness? Yeah, I think having a deep conversation with yourself is super important, and like self-reflecting. Not too much because you don't want to get overwhelmed by it, but enough to like lay it all out for you. Writing stuff down. I'm a big advocate of like, I have a journal back here. You can't see it off camera, but I have a journal, write everything down at the end of every day. Be like, okay, this is what happened today. I can revisit this tomorrow or whatever, right? Yeah, that's probably what I had to say about that. Exercise, obviously a big one. Doing what you love to do, passion-wise. I think that's helps the steps towards becoming mentally well or better adjusted.
Yes.
All right, and the last point that you wanted to bring up in this pod was, how is the environment we're in making it challenging to battle our mental health?
Well, thanks to COVID, everybody is very afraid. And fear is always something that makes it incredibly challenging to be kind to ourselves. We are put in survival mode, and survival mode is not kind. So, yeah, I just want to, and also acknowledge that there are many systems of oppression that make it incredibly challenging for people to access mental health supports. And, yeah, there's a lot of isms: capitalism, white supremacy, imperialism, colonialism, and a lot of us are starting to really racism. A lot of us are starting to exactly. We could go on.
There's a lot of isms.
There's a lot of isms, and all of them suck.
Yo, fuck the man.
Yeah, because it really does make it challenging, and I think that we have to be really compassionate with ourselves, and also recognize that, you know, radically changing the world starts with radically changing ourselves, and that is always going to improve the moment that we are compassionate to ourselves, the moment we extend ourselves the offer of becoming more mentally well, at whatever capacity that we can. We're not asking everybody to, you know, change everything overnight. Yep. Just take one step towards kindness, practice that kindness with yourself daily, and acknowledge that there's a lot of shit that is pressing, and we also don't have to give in to all that fear, you know? We have a lot of power within ourselves. We are very powerful people and very powerful beings. We don't have to give that power up to validate systems of oppression and
all these social norms.
Exactly. Yeah, talk about what you need to talk about. Listen to those who have not been listened to. Highlight the voices of those who have been silenced, and keep doing it one day at a time.
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, beautiful words from Clemi right there. Gotta love it. Just do your part, guys. Do your part to help out, push this movement that's going on that we've all been seeing in breaking the barriers. And like, this has obviously been a hard time for a lot of people, including both of us in this room. Everyone listening presumably has gone through their own hardships during this crazy fucking time that we've all been living through the last couple of years. I would just say, like, if I had to say one thing, make sure you get vaccinated, obviously, if you want to. The world needs more hugs.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I know that sounds silly, but, like, you covered all, like, the major things. So I'm just going to throw out hugs, man. Like, it's so important.
Yeah, heart-to-heart
We're
connection.
We're going to need connection after this.
Yes.
To rebuild a community again.
Yes.
Because the fear is there.
Yes.
Right?
And community will save us.
Yeah, if we want stuff to go back to any sort of normalcy again, which whatever the fuck that means, just hugs. Just hugs. I'm just going to shut up. Just hug somebody. Hug your friend. Hug a loved one.
Yes.
Hug somebody.
Yeah.
It's super important.
Hug your pet.
All right, Clemi. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It really means a lot. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for talking openly about mental health with me today. It's been great. Hopefully the listeners enjoyed it as well. But yeah, thank you so much, Clemi, for being here.
Gracias a ti. It was an honor. It was really, truly an honor. And I'm so grateful for everything you shared. And
of course.
I feel so much closer to you. I'm going to give you
great.
a hug after this.
We're going to hug on camera and off camera.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. That means a lot. Just doing my little sliver of the pie here, you know what I mean? But it's people like you that come on and inspire me to keep going with this podcast and to keep doing me. And I get closer to people this way, too, like you just said. Like, I feel like a lot closer to you now than I did before we rolled this, right? So, awesome. I always, at the end of every episode, you got anything to shout out into the camera or into the listeners' ears?
Yeah.
Anything in your life going on you want to shout out?
I do. I want to say that I love you so fucking much. And I'm so proud of you. Whoever you are and whatever you are doing is valid and seen and held and valued. And we need you. We need you just as you are. So take care of yourself. And I love you.
Beautiful. And where can people find you, Clemi, if they want to reach out?
You can find me on Instagram, you know, maybe on the streets someday. In a park, hopefully.
On the mean streets of Toronto.
Yeah, hopefully, like, I don't know, traveling the world, ideally, one day.
What's the tag? The
yeah,
username?
you can at Clementitties. CLEMENTIDDIES. That's Clementitties.
At Clementitties on Instagram.
At Clementitties, yeah.
Shoot her a DM. She's amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm very fortunate to have her here on the podcast and sharing her story with us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching, guys. The in-person, I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes.
This was fun being in front of the person for once and not on Zoom.
Yeah, it's a different energy, for sure.
I love it. It's like the room is full of love.
Yes.
That's great. And for the listeners, watch the video if you want to watch the video. But thank you so much for listening as well. I appreciate it. If you like what you hear, give it a like, give it a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. If you really like it, leave it a review. That helps the algorithm and stuff.
Yes.
You can follow us on Instagram at A Mental Break Podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Continue to support this amazing journey I'm on with this podcast and making mental health conversations more accessible to a lot more people. So take a deep breath, drink some water, get your vaccinations if that's what you want to do. What else can I say? I don't know. I just love you guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And stay tuned to the next episode.
Yes.
Clemi, thank you so much for being here again. Love you.
Love you.
Awesome. All
Thank
right.
you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.